Patrick O'Sullivan. Welcome to the podcast. Patrick,
Thank you.
for those of you that don't know, is CEO and part founder of Jigsaw in the States, and I'm in Canada. So, Patrick, before we get into our conversation, I have to pull you up on something. So, as you know, I'm from Dublin, I'm Irish, and I saw your skit on St. Patrick's Day, which I'll share in the description. So it started, and I was like, hold on, Braveheart's not Irish. And then I was like, what is that accent? That is not Dublin. Now, because I'm Irish, I appreciate the humor, but I was like, there's something going on here that I'm missing. Why did you decide to do that skit? That was hilarious.
That was a skit that we did for one of our hashtag Funny Friday video series. My dogs are maybe angry at the accent too. I don't know if you can hear them playing in the background, growling at each other, but it was not a very good Irish accent. I will give you that. It was a long shoot. Of course, I was dressed up in green with face paint, looking like Braveheart. Somebody brought in one of those giant Braveheart swords, and we did the whole thing. It was essentially the gist of the video was me rallying the troops to fight against magnesium deficiency. and and during the accent during the filming, my poor Irish accent kept going Australian on me, and I was like, "What is happening here?"
And a bit of
But I
Scottish.
did wear
It was
green. Yeah, for those that can't see, I am wearing my green It's Fun to Feel Good shirt today in honor of you and your Irish heritage, as well as mine as well.
so that is that a trend that you guys do in your company? Because I did check out the YouTube channel and on your website, and there's a lot of humor there, which is brilliant because there's not enough humor in our lives now.
Well, they say laughter is the best medicine,
Mm.
and we like to say that magnesium is a close second. We started to do the Funny Friday video series, I believe it was 2016, maybe 2017 going into that. And the kind of funny part is we just kept it going. So we did every Friday a new video for 1 year, so 52 videos in a row. And we really didn't know what we were going to film. Like we didn't sit down and say, okay, here's all 52 videos. So my wife, who is my business partner and also the chief marketing officer, she and I would often sort of on our morning walks with the dogs come up with a premise. And if we could think of something that like the premise made us laugh, we felt like the script would kind of write itself. So we would do kind of a crazy, and it almost is always like, now, this may be a bad idea, but hear me out. What if Braveheart came to the office and was giving a speech, a rousing speech about magnesium? And we're like, well, that sounds kind of funny. Let's see what happens. And then the secret has been my cousin. He actually was going to USC Film School. He was between his junior and senior year when we first started doing these Funny Friday videos. And he was basically interning for us. So, here he is going to a legit film school at, University of Southern California. And flying in every other week, we would double up and film twice a week. And we were doing these just silly, fun. I think of them as almost like Saturday Night Live type skits
Yeah.
that we would try to do to really entertain, or if you will, edutain our audience on either a new product or an existing product, or just kind of give them a peek behind the scenes at Jigsaw Health. And really, it actually it gave birth to what is now our slogan, which is on my shirt. It's fun to feel good. So we started the Funny Friday videos in 2016, and then we changed our tagline to "It's fun to feel good" in 2019. And we continue to do those videos. We've done, gosh, so many other creative video projects over the years, including even a documentary about pickleball, if you want to talk about that. But
Oh, I saw,
um,
yeah. Which is
yeah, so we're just very blessed, and I have such a great team to get to work with here at Jigsaw Health that it's like I feel like my job as CEO, I actually kind of jokingly call myself the chief entertainment officer. And I feel like my job is to find sort of new mountains to climb for us. And then we're like, okay, how are we going to do a one shot of a Christmas song around the office in slow motion so that we can speed it up later and it looks like hilarious, but it's fun. So that's the kind of way that's the way my brain works, I guess.
I think like it's very attractive. Like it's a very attractive approach. Before we started recording, we were discussing authenticity, and for an Irish person, like born and bred, it's very hard to shake authenticity. Like it goes very deep in Irish people. We find it hard to BS people, which not
Mhm.
everyone likes. But to do what you're doing, it's very authentic in a sense, staying true to you and your family's personality. And it's attractive, but it's also it is none of the BS that other supplement companies are doing. You're creating something where you're showing a side to yourself and the company that we're not seeing from other companies. Not saying they're not great, but sometimes they're very black and white and almost pretentious at times. But adding in the humor, people want that. People want to be entertained. They want to laugh. They want to see like what's really going on with this company. Like, and I think this is a brilliant idea. So
Sorry,
I
the dogs
approve.
really are getting at it now. It's Zoomy hour here. Uh, they're the
Oh, they're not, we can't hear them. So it's
okay. You can't. All right, we're doing all right then.
yeah. So, okay. So apart from that and that bit of flattery, you're welcome. Let's jump
Thank
into
you.
the topic. So I wanted to talk to you a big obstacle in my sphere of what I teach and my clients and followers and their experiences is the restless legs and cramping, all that stuff. The magnesium, which is still so underrated, and I'm hoping we can cover a bit of minerals, electrolytes, hydration towards the end. So first, restless legs. A lot of people deal with restless legs. Um, let's start with that. There's two types of cramping that can cause restless legs. Let's go. What are they?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing about like our muscles. You'd think, oh, I've got a cramp, but there's two types of muscle cramps. When you are in the midst of playing a sport like pickleball or soccer or whatever you want, even walking or running, and you start to cramp, that is typically the sign of a potential potassium deficiency. But if you cramp in the middle of the night or have those restless legs and that kind of clenching, that is often a sign of a magnesium deficiency. And the two, like you can't fix one with the other. So when I was growing up, I played a lot of soccer and I hated bananas. And I would get leg cramps at night. And so it's like my parents would, you got to eat these bananas. I'm like, oh, I don't want to eat bananas. But had they known sort of what I know now, we would have focused a lot more on magnesium rich foods, such as like pumpkin seeds. That's a really good one. Even dark chocolate is really good in magnesium. Almonds, cashews, two other really high magnesium rich foods. And of course, you can supplement, and many people choose to supplement with magnesium as well, or to use it topically. And the really the point is magnesium, potassium, both electrolytes. People probably know that. The other three electrolytes are sodium, calcium, and chloride. So magnesium and calcium are kind of like think of two kids on a teeter-totter. You want them to sort of be able to go back and forth. And that's the clenching calcium and relaxing magnesium. And it's similar with potassium and sodium, also two kids on a teeter-totter. Sodium clenching, potassium releasing. Well, my theory is that the American food supply is plentiful, bountiful with sodium and calcium, and not quite that way with potassium or magnesium. So at Jigsaw Health, we've really focused our formulas on promoting high doses of magnesium and potassium because I just don't think they're that common in the food supply. And I would say that like the proof is, think about how many people suffer from cramping, from restless legs, from Charlie horses at night. And the real thing that is very important is that those are signals that are very important and should not be ignored, because when you're low on magnesium, like my friend Morley Robbins, he's the creator of the root cause protocol. He calls magnesium the conductor of the symphony. A lot of people will say that magnesium, you'll often read magnesium is involved in over 300 biochemical reactions. Well, it turns out that number is from the 1950s.
Mhm.
It was a best guess by Dr. Burt Valley of Harvard Medical School. And that number just kind of has survived for the past 70 years. Well, my friend Morley, going through the literature again and looking at the updated literature, has counted up that magnesium is involved in at least 3,751 biochemical reactions, and one of the most important of which is the beating of our hearts. So along those lines, why I think leg cramps and getting to the root cause fix, which is getting more magnesium into your body, why I think is so important is because another friend of mine, Rick Malter, PhD, he told me about a amazing thing that happens where about once or two or three times a year, someone running a marathon will drop dead right before the end or right after the end. And his theory is that it's literally they've absolutely run out of magnesium. It's the last relaxation that they could take, and their body just has no more magnesium. Because think about it, this is someone that ran a marathon. They're quote unquote healthy. Well, maybe aerobically, maybe they, musculature could do it, but they were so deficient in magnesium that their heart just stopped. At least that's his theory, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So to me, solving those restless legs with an easy solution of getting more magnesium into your body is going to have so many positive downstream effects.
One of the things, and Morley has been, he's awesome. He's been on the podcast twice, so
Oh,
super
good.
character. And you're correct. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's at, I'm just going to highlight this for people. It's at least 3,000. There's so much about the human body we do not know. There's more we don't know than what we do know. And I think people
Amen.
forget about that because we think, well, we're so advanced now. We're not. We're still super primal. So, with the nighttime cramps and depleting magnesium, what you mentioned previously was the calcium aspect. And I'd like to tie this into the stress aspect because most people are not running marathons. They just lead super stressful lives. When we're very,
Yeah.
very stressed, we're sending this signal through ACTH to the kidneys to find calcium from somewhere, bring up calcium. So we've got this huge stress response, which then increases our need for magnesium. Our burn rate becomes higher, but most people then will tell you, but I take magnesium every day. I'm taking magnesium, but they're still getting the cramps and the spasms and the twitches. But you're not taking enough magnesium to compensate for the amount of stress that is both in your life and that your body's experiencing.
I think you nailed it. Dr. Mildred Seelig wrote a book called The Magnesium Factor. And in the book, she provides a formula for dosing. And it is much higher than the FDA recommends. So the FDA recommended daily intake for adults is 420 milligrams, and that's just sort of across the board. And keep in mind, all the FDA's recommended daily intakes are based upon a minimum to stave off deficiency.
Mhm.
It's not based on optimal. It's based on to try and stave off a deficiency. But that's also painting with a very broad brush. Dr. Seelig gave this formula. For every pound of body weight, take 5 milligrams of magnesium per day. So each 100 pounds equates to 500 milligrams per day. So at 200 pounds, I'm about 190. I should be getting from all sources about 1,000 milligrams per day. Now, Morley had the brilliant corollary that he added, which is an increase with stress. Why? Because stress requires more energy from the body. The body burns more energy under stress, and energy requires ATP, which is triggered by magnesium. Mg2 plus ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is what we run on.
So I think you would agree, we'd all agree that probably the main cause for these restless legs at night is that stress response, wherever the stress is coming from.
Yes, stress plays a big role. Also, there's a lot about our lifestyle that will deplete magnesium faster and faster. Actually, um, Dr. Suzy Cohen, who's a pharmacist, wrote a great book years ago called Drug Muggers. And in that book, she gave 14 different classes of drugs that will deplete the body of magnesium. SSRIs, antibiotics, blood pressure medication. There's a long list. We can put this in the show notes. But if you're taking any of those, I think it was really a big contribution that she made in her book to sort of remind people that, like, hey, these will actually burn magnesium faster. So you got to work kind of harder. You got to be more cognizant of getting this, magnificent mineral into you. And I really think that symptoms are really sort of the best way. So with one of our products, Jigsaw Mag SRT, which stands for Sustained Release Technology, we did a human clinical trial called the Scottsdale Magnesium Study, and the results were published in the Journal of American College of Nutrition. We looked at mag serum, mag RBC, and self-reported deficiency symptoms compared to a placebo group. 93 participants. And, thankfully, MAG SRT beat placebo, beat it pretty bad, actually. And, but even knowing what I know about that, I know that there's challenges with like the blood markers of MAG RBC or MAG serum. MAG RBC is a much better uh, marker than MAG serum, but I kind of look at like, how do I feel? Like, am I getting cramps? Because if I am, that's the easiest symptom in the world. And, with products like a magnesium lotion, you can even target your specific muscle cramps. So for me, I tend to take about 1,000 milligrams. I get 1,000 milligrams per day from all sources. And yet still sometimes I will, it's usually when I'm playing pickleball for too long, I'll outrun my magnesium coverage, so to speak, and maybe like my calves or my feet at night. I'll feel them, a little tense, and so I'll just rub on a little bit of the magnesium lotion that we use at Jigsaw Health. It's called Jigsaw Mag Relief. By the way, a pretty good funny Friday music video about get some mag relief, sweet darling. Little Temptations cover for you there, parody. But that mag relief I'll use when I've outrun my mag SRT and my mag soothe coverage for the day.
Mm. I'll find the link for that and I'll share it. I'm sure everyone wants to
We'll have to
see
put
it
that one.
now. So, I agree with you. Symptom picture for me is more important than necessarily what bloods say. And I've spoke about that with Morley as well. So I'm 140 pounds. So I take 700 milligrams a day, sometimes more, like I'm pretty good with it. I am not the type of person that gets cramps. I don't get leg cramps or feet cramps, menstrual cramps. I don't cramp, but last week I know when I'm stressed, my eyelid will twitch. So last week, my
Mm.
eyelids started twitching, and then I start getting the butterflies in the heart. So the heart flutters. To me, it feels like a butterfly's wings. And I don't know
Yeah.
where I was. I think I was getting my nails done or something. So my 1 hour of downtime and my eyelids start twitching. And I was like, man, this must have been a stressful week. That even though I was on top of my magnesium, my burn rate was a lot higher and I needed more than what, and to the average person, 700's a lot, let alone 1,000. Like
Oh yeah.
most people are what taking, if they're taking a supplement, 150, maybe 200. Most people are not eating enough dark chocolate or green vegetables or red meat. So like most
Yeah.
people, when we hear the term, which is everywhere now, that, oh, everyone's magnesium deficient, I don't think people understand the context of that. They think, oh, well, it's not me. I take magnesium. Well, it still could be you. You're just not
Right.
taking enough magnesium because whatever the day was last week, Thursday, I think it was, in on any other day, maybe I'm not magnesium deficient, but on that day, I was magnesium
Hmm.
deficient. So that brings us to the next kind of discussion is symptoms. Not everyone's going to present with these symptoms. Like I said, I never get restless legs or cramping in my legs. Like I'd have to be extremely dehydrated for that to happen.
That that does make sense, and there is an element of hydration. That hydration is more than just H2O. It's also the electrolytes, and we covered what those were. Those five electrolytes. The the thing that I have noticed about like muscle twitches is that sometimes it's resolved with magnesium, sometimes it's not. So my wife in particular, gosh, this was a couple of years ago, and she was like, "I'm taking so much magnesium, and it's still this eye twitch." And she ended up using beef liver, and I don't know if it was the B vitamins in the beef liver, but it was beef liver from Enviromedica, which we sell on jigsawhealth.com. It's a great company. It's also one of the root cause protocol recommended brands. And I don't know, maybe 2 days of beef liver, which, by the way, also will contain a number of sort of micro minerals, because it's like literally desiccated liver, just kind of all ground up and put into a capsule, dried out, of course, as well. And so I don't know if it was maybe one of the micro minerals like the copper or even the iron that helped with that. I mean, of course, we can go down the rabbit hole of iron and anemia, and I'm generally not a fan at all of supplemental iron. Rather, you got to get your body's iron recycling system working, and that's really I would say the main aspect of, like, that's the main point of the root of Morley's root cause protocol. But the symptoms really are the most telling, and cramps or muscle twitches often are that canary in the coal mine. It's funny, gosh, it was a while ago. So Jigsaw Health, we're celebrating our 20th birthday this year, and I'm thinking back to a conversation that I had probably 18 years ago, maybe 17 years ago, with Dr. Carolyn Dean, who wrote a great book called The Magnesium Miracle. She also has a great magnesium product herself, and I just remember talking to her, and she was saying, "Patrick, I don't look at the bloods at all. I don't look at the blood work at all. It's purely symptomology, and muscle cramps being the first one." So it's kind of funny that such a quote unquote small symptom would unlock a treasure trove of health for your body with that one particular specific mineral.
I am when I'm looking at the symptom picture, some telltale signs, obviously anything that cramps, spasms, twitches, I always ask, do your eyelids twitch? Do you get heart palpitations? I'm always asking about numbness and tingling as well. So they're kind of like you said they're going to be the telltale. If someone says yes, then you can delve a bit deeper there. And a blood panel's not going to do that. A blood panel is just black
No.
and white numbers. And people I think there's a lot of confusion around blood panels. People think they're going to get all the answers from a blood panel. You're definitely not. And even if you were, you have to get someone who understands them, like Morley, to read it for you, where you're not just looking at the black and white, you're looking at the intertwined connections and how one influences the others. But most people don't. They look at the range, you're good, you're bad, the end. But another thing that I'm also looking at is like, do you get migraines? Do you get headaches? So how are they influenced by magnesium? Because that's something very common, especially here in Alberta, like just outside Calgary, where I am, with the Chinooks and the weather pressure. A lot of people respond poorly to them.
Hmm. Yeah, migraines and headaches are just kind of another form of muscle tension that your body is showing up and you know essentially trying to signal to you, the operator, I need some magnesium in here. It's ironically, another one that just occurred to me is like chocolate craving. So our stomach kind of signaling to us, oh, I, I must need some magnesium. We're thinking, oh, I've got a sweet tooth. But our body, this intelligence that's inside says, no, I'm trying to get you to give me some magnesium.
Mhm.
Uh, Also in the body would be constipation. So going back to the two kids on the teeter totter with calcium and magnesium, that's a visual Im it's like a visual image of the peristaltic action that is supposed to happen in our GI tract, where it's supposed to squeeze and relax. And I think one of the big ironies of the medical system is that we have used some forms of magnesium, like a magnesium chloride or a magnesium sulfate, to or citrate even, to create what we call a grenade-like effect in the GI tract. So if you're prepping for a colonoscopy, they'll use magnesium sulfate or magnesium chloride or magnesium citrate to clean out your bowels in a quote safe way because it's essentially using a side effect of magnesium. So magnesium is hydrophilic, which is a fancy word that means magnesium draws water to it like a magnet. So if you take a whole bunch of that, put it down the gut, and draw water to it, well, loose stools. So really one of the seed thoughts that created Jigsaw Mag SRT was my own father's experience 20 plus years ago of sort of reading health books and going through a magnesium deficiency checklist and being like, yeah, I got that. I've got the muscle cramps. I've got the migraines. I've got um, well, he had GI, really IBS. Um, I've got the fatigue, I've got the insomnia, all these kind of like trouble sleeping, all these things that magnesium is associated with because he wasn't feeling relaxed and he was stressed and he was, deficient in magnesium. So he's like, well, I'll just go take some magnesium from the drugstore. Well, that magnesium oxide, most likely what he got, just blew him up. And he's like, this is terrible. How am I supposed to fix a magnesium deficiency if I can't get enough magnesium in me? So, MAG-SRT, the idea behind that was if I could use a highly absorbable form of magnesium, we use dimagnesium malate. And if I could slow down the release so I can take a high dose, but it's not entering my system all at once. That's the SRT, sustained release technology, and it breaks down over an 8 hour period. So we find that many of our customers over the 20 years of having this product be on the market will go from constipated, headaches, leg cramps, low energy, sleeping poorly to, oh my gosh, you changed my life. Because all of those things can be improved or fixed with the proper magnesium. And Magus RT fits that bill for many people.
Constipation is a big one. And if I'm honest, if a client is severely constipated, I will use magnesium because I would rather them flush than have everything
Yeah.
fermenting and toxifying the body. But then
What form do you use?
if I'm trying to flush them, I'm just going to use a citrate or an oxide. We have a couple here we
Right.
can get just because it's not just a random thing I'm doing. Like they're pretty extreme. Maybe they haven't
Yep.
pooped in 5 days. It's like I need this
Yeah.
out because it's increasing
Today.
systemic inflammation and whatnot, and
That's right.
mental health and whatnot. And then there's the element of constipation that goes to the thyroid. We know when the thyroid is not functioning optimally, constipation is a primary symptom there. But magnesium is essential for thyroid function on nearly every level.
Yeah, it's several of the 3,751 or more
Mhm.
reactions for sure. Yeah.
What do you think the connection is then? And I know like we both know there's a clear connection, but just for the audience, in magnesium and adrenaline, adrenaline being one of the primary stress hormones, and then when we have high adrenaline, we've got the sleep issues, our burn rate is higher, generally thyroid issues are worse. Uh, Can we use magnesium to fix the adrenaline aspect of things?
I'm thinking about that. And in 20 years, I've never thought about, nor has anyone asked about the connection between magnesium and adrenaline. That's very interesting.
It would make sense.
Well, obviously, we need some adrenaline, right? We don't want none. And I guess that's probably, you could say, across the board with hormones. We need them in the right amounts at the right times. And our hormones are, I mean, absolutely made based upon how well our body is functioning, how well our organs are functioning, really, our glands. And those glands operate based on the input that we give them, both physically and the food and the water and the supplements, and also the energy and the mindset. All of those things matter. So, I would, without doing the research, I would say, yeah, I'm sure magnesium is involved in adrenaline production. And it would be interesting if lack of magnesium, a deficiency, caused a spike in adrenaline of some sorts because it's the body's sort of crave machine trying to push the operator to get more magnesium, sort of the what we talked about with regards to a chocolate craving could actually be a symptom or a sign that the body is saying, I need magnesium. And the body, this innate wisdom, knows that there's magnesium in cacao.
Yeah.
it, I don't know. I've never thought about that before.
Well, the body is super smart. We will never understand the body and everything it knows. But purely speculation, I would say yes, because when we have more adrenaline coming from the adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands need magnesium to function and almost as a fuel source. So the more stress demand on the adrenals, the more magnesium you'd need, but also magnesium is essential for liver function, and liver is where we metabolize adrenaline. And we know through the literature, and even in my own case studies, that if someone's liver is damaged, fatty liver, stagnation, cirrhosis, whatever it is, they'll have a harder time metabolizing adrenaline because the COMT enzymes and all are not working optimally. And I would argue part of that is a magnesium deficiency. Most people that have issues with their liver, their nutrition's probably not optimal. So I'd argue there is a magnesium deficiency there. And people generally feel better when they take magnesium if they're very stressed. Like you mentioned, it helps us relax, it helps us feel more capable and resilient.
Yeah. Um, a mentor of ours, a guy named Roy H. Williams, we were talking to him about magnesium one time, and he goes, "Ooh, sounds like a massage you can swallow." I was like, oh,
That's weird.
Roy, that is a good nugget right there. Magnesium, a massage you can swallow.
But it's yeah, it's in I'd say it's interesting, but only a very interesting mind would come up with something like that.
Well, yeah, I can assure you, Roy H. Williams is an interesting mind, 1,000% true.
So what are all the different types of magnesium then? Because this is something I get asked a lot, and I have my favorites. I've used yours, I've used Bioptimizers. I really like Thorn Research as well. But people always ask, like, which one should I use? What's the
Hmm.
difference between them?
That is a question that comes up often, and I'll give you my three favorites that I like to use, and I'll also give a couple that I generally recommend staying away from. In fact, in the show notes, what we can include is a little PDF that I have called my top five favorite ways to get magnesium, which includes some of the foods that we talked about as well. So my three favorite, number one would be magnesium malate. That is an energizing form, generally speaking, of magnesium. My second favorite would be magnesium glycinate, which is a little bit more of a calming. That's magnesium bound to glycine. It's an amino acid that kind of helps calm the brain. Going back to number one, magnesium malate is magnesium bound to malic acid, which has kind of an energizing aspect. And then my third favorite that I like to use is magnesium L-threonate. That's magnesium bound to threonic acid, which has some good qualities for the brain. And Jigsaw Health, we make all three of those in three different forms. So mag malate as mag SRT, mag soothe, which is a nighttime magnesium powder. That's the magnesium glycinate. And then brain boost is the magnesium L-threonate. So those are my three favorites to use. Um, I know Biooptimizers, I think uses all three. I think they have maybe seven forms of magnesium
That's important.
altogether.
Yeah.
And there's I think maybe they also use some magnesium orotate, which is kind of older research now, but had showed sort of good stuff for the heart. And I guess part of my question would be um, like the application. It's it's kind of a confusing thing, right? Because it's like the application. Do I want to end up with like one that I just take and no fuss, no muss, I'm done with it? Like a biooptimizers, which is, very convenient, or do I want to be more specific with it, like what Jigsaw has done, where it's like I've got the Magus RT in the morning for energy, I've got the brain boost at lunch for the L-threonate and sort of an afternoon slump, and then at night the Mag Soothe, the magnesium glycinate. Of course, my bias is the Jigsaw Health, but also I understand it's like, oh, I got to buy three products and use them at three different times. Maybe that's more than I want to do. In general, the forms that I would recommend staying away from for regular, like long-term use would be magnesium oxide. It just has very low absorbability. It's definitely the cheapest form of magnesium that you can get as a manufacturer from the sort of raw material side of things. But it also has the highest, what they call like molecular weight. So you'll find it in a lot of multivitamins where, they want to check a box on 65 different, things. So it's like you see this pill, it's got one thing, and you're like, okay, it's covering 65 bases. Well, it's probably magnesium oxide because you can put a little bit in there and get a lot of magnesium out of it on the label claim, but it's probably 20 milligrams or 80 milligrams of magnesium. We've already talked about how we need hundreds, if not, 1,000 milligrams of magnesium. So that's kind of spitting in the ocean. But magnesium oxide in and of itself, because it's not very absorbable, is why you're able to help to clear a constipation, like a very bad constipation. It's because that form of magnesium isn't very absorbable, ironically, right? So it's a safe laxative to use, but I just wouldn't recommend it for regular everyday use. Same thing with magnesium citrate and magnesium chloride. Those forms wouldn't recommend unless the magnesium chloride, that's actually good for topical use. I would say it's probably the most commonly used form of topical use, and that tends to be pretty good. I prefer on topical use lotions to sprays or oils simply because the oils are a little bit, one, they can kind of have like a stinging effect that I feel is like, is that absolutely necessary? But two, it's like, it's really messy. It's like sticky. And when it dries up, it kind of flakes off everywhere. So you're like, you're going to have a hard time with compliance. You might do it once and be like, oh, okay, I did it. But then you're like, oh, that was a real pain in the butt. So a magnesium chloride lotion that just, scent free, rubs in, no fuss, no muss. You can really get targeted muscle relief. That's a good use of magnesium chloride.
Magnesium chloride is used a lot here in the hospitals for severe constipation. A
Mm,
lot of my clients, not a lot, several of my clients use the magnesium oxide. There's a specific brand, I can't remember what it is, but it's just pure oxide. And I have maybe two or three clients who have taken hundreds of that at a time, no movement in the bowels at all. I know it's crazy.
of
Sometimes
magnesium oxide?
yeah, and then I'm stumped. I'm like, well, how dehydrated are you? Like, what's going on? Then I'm like, there must be a structural issue here, like
Yeah.
something's going like
Like a
hundreds.
blocked colon. Yeah.
Yeah, something's happening. I because this is my business, I work with a lot of people with low thyroid function and hypothyroidism. So constipation is a big thing, and it's something I'm always trying to avoid because of what we mentioned, the systemic inflammation, the endotoxins, mental health, like the whole shebang. So I do really like Horn research, they have a citramate. It's called citramate. It's a blend of the citrate and the malate. And
Mm,
a lot of my clients really respond to that. It's not harsh, but it guarantees they'll have a bowel movement the next morning. So again, they're
hmm.
not, for lack of a better word, toxifying, going around all day. And it's not a high dose. It's a 125 milligrams, I think, but it's enough to make sure they poop the next morning. So I do like that
Yeah.
as well. Speaking of your top fives, do you have a magnesium deficiency checklist like you mentioned earlier, like a symptom checklist? I have this.
Yeah. Well, I think the probably best way to look at that would be to look at it in conjunction with the Scottsdale Magnesium Study that we did. Um, we don't, I don't know that we actually have that checklist on the website anymore. Years and years and years ago, we did have something, but I think through the years, as we've migrated from, one platform to another, I'll have to take a look at that. But certainly, I'll also put Suzy Cohen's the 14 drugs that deplete the body of magnesium, so your viewers can, your listeners can do some research on that, and I'll have to take a look and see what we have in terms of the magnesium deficiency checklist.
If not, I'll just create one because I think people would be really interested in that.
Yeah,
Another one that people are not aware of, and I personally think that ADHD diagnosis is out of control now. Like I think they're just thrown around willy-nilly and it's not a
yeah,
true diagnosis. And a lot of people don't realize that ADHD medication like Vyvanse is super popular here. Depletes minerals. Not only does it deplete minerals, it blocks the absorption of whatever minerals are left. And people
yeah.
are giving this to their kids. People are taking it because it helps to calm them and help them focus. Well, then I would argue you need more magnesium because of the high adrenaline that you have, that you can't focus. Like, anyway, that's a different rabbit hole to go down.
No, I'm with you on that soapbox. I don't think the good Lord made us to be deficient in any single pharmaceutical chemical. Um, our bodies can certainly respond to those chemicals, but we're not deficient in Vyvanse. We're not deficient in Ozempic. There's likely something else going on, and it's like so tempting to want to put a band-aid on it and just sort of forget about it. But, you had too many band-aids, and I think the body revolts. It's not into that. And so I would certainly encourage everyone that it starts with mindset and it starts with realizing I can get better. My body is full of wisdom and my job is to investigate where the blockages are. And, I'm opening to finding and following my intuition to find where those things are so that I can get better because we can get better. It's been done. Ashley and I, my wife, we just started a new podcast called the Rock Bottom Podcast, health horror stories that inspire. And it was inspired essentially by, you know, the story of the 4 Minute Mile, where I believe Roger Bannister is the man who first ran the 4 Minute Mile. And until he did it,
No.
no one on earth had ever done it, or at least recorded it. But once he did, and people started to hear about it, they realized it's possible. If Roger can do it, then I can do it. And that is the whole purpose of the Rock Bottom podcast, because I think we, as a society, have probably gone, the pendulum has swung too far on the scientific side to randomized, controlled, placebo controlled studies are the only form of science that we are allowed to look at. And keep in mind, Jigsaw, because we did, you'll get a kick out of this, because we were doing these funny skits about our company and about our products, I said, okay, I think we need to go just as far the opposite direction. So that's why we paid, a research company to do the Scottsdale Magnesium Study. And, like I said, it ended up being published on, in PubMed, because I was like, as funny as we're going to try and be, we need to be just as sciencey. Well, where I'm sort of getting to is with the Rock Bottom podcast, there's a lot of randomized controlled data, but we'd like to see more N of one stories where here's what I was going through, here's what I tried that didn't work, here's what I tried that finally did work. And nobody so far on the podcast, we've published 3 episodes and we have a fourth one that's coming out I think next week. Everybody on the podcast, we asked them, like, at your lowest on a scale of 1 to 10, where were you? And we've definitely had as low as 1. One of our guests, the one that's coming out, every morning he would sit on the toilet and poop blood for about an hour or longer for a long time. And you look at him now, and I mean, he's healthy. He's strong. He's good musculature, great attitude, big smile. He got a lot better. So, we've had a 1 out of 10, we've had a 3 out of 10, we've had a 2 out of 10. Now we have, 7 out of 10. And then we ask them, and how are you feeling now? I don't know that we've ever quite gotten a 10 out of 10 yet, because I think people are still like, I'm headed the right direction. I'm not perfection, but I am headed the right direction. And it's those stories that have been really inspiring for Ashley and I to hear, and for them to share them with the audience as a 4 Minute Mile potential. So it starts with what's up here in your head and believing that you can, and then listening to your intuition, and then trying stuff out, trying stuff out. And I would say the more, sometimes you have to rip some band-aids off, right? Sometimes you have to take some of the old scaffolding down, and that can be challenging and difficult. And it starts with mindset, though.
You have to be real with yourself. You have to admit, like, this is all on me. I'm the one that got myself here. And I think as well, for anyone that's been rock bottom, you're never going to be number 10. You'll never hit that 10 because you know what it's like to be rock bottom. You know what it feels like to always be better and what that journey looks like. So you'll never be number 10 because your goal is always to be better. So there's no upper ceiling there. Death is your is your upper ceiling. To die peacefully, healthfully in your sleep with no pain, that is your upper limit. And I've said this to clients before because I was rock bottom. When I first started out, I was 280 pounds. I had my first child when I was very, very young, like 20 years ago. And I was rock bottom, my heaviest, a new baby, a lot of bullying, people telling me, well, now you've had a baby, you're going to be a loser for the rest of your life. You've ruined your life. And this was in Dublin, like a long time ago. And if it wasn't for those people and those words, like to sound cliche, look at me now. Like I wouldn't be
Yes.
here. But I have said to a lot of my clients, for a lot of people, I think you do need to hit rock bottom to really do that 360. I've seen people try and they're maybe at a number four and they're like, well, I'm not rock bottom, but I'd like to be better. I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I think you have to have that fire. You need to almost touch hell to jump
Yeah.
out of it. And it's definitely an interesting topic. I've always said, like me and you, we can preach the supplements, the health, the nutrition, the exercise till the cows come home. It means nothing if your mind is not in the game as well.
That's right. Yeah, it starts in the mind, and you through your journey have been able to develop so much empathy for your clients that just it's so wonderful to have a coach like you that someone can talk to and say, I, I feel comfortable sharing and being vulnerable to you, Shemaine, because you've been there.
Yeah.
You've touched hell and come out the other side. And yeah, there's a great saying, when you're going through hell, just keep going.
Yeah, yeah. But let's be completely honest, because I don't want the listeners to be delusional. A lot of people know I grew up on the streets of Dublin. Sometimes I'm a complete asshole. I don't have any empathy for anyone. I'm like, just do it. Just do it. Stop and just do it. And not everyone
Well,
likes to hear that.
empathy comes in many forms, and sometimes it's like Rocky's boxing trainer. Come on, Rock. You gotta get in there and punch him. And it
We're
sounds like that's more your style than the
I
Florence
try,
Nightingale.
but you know, when you're in the industry for 20 years, the empathy battery starts to run low when you're
Mm.
like, come on, like people, we're always going to have obstacles and stress, just do it. But as we wrap up now, I had one question that now that we're coming into spring and summer, obviously like-minded people like us, we're going to choose good electrolytes and minerals and whatnot. But what's your opinion on the likes of Gatorade and these
Oh,
sports drinks? Because I have a lot of clients that still go for them. Now, I'm not a sugar is the enemy person. So the glucose thing is, I'm more concerned if I see them consuming mountains of sucralose and aspartame. That's more concerning to me.
Um, we agree-ish. I would say yes. The fake sugars that have all popped up, um, they they can be pretty problematic. The neurotoxic effects of sucralose, aspartame, those things, not good at all. Sugar in the form of a coconut sugar, honey, really good, really good. Sugar in the form of high fructose corn syrup, not so great. And guess what's in Gatorade? It's high fructose corn syrup. Guess what's in Coca-Cola? High fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup is in like, I don't know, 50% of the items in the grocery store. And the glucose spike that happens as a result, really bad. And all the corn grown here in America has tons of glyphosate or, Roundup on it to keep the bugs away. But that glyphosate is getting in to the food supply in too high of quantities. I'll just say that. And there's really no safe levels of glyphosate. So just not a fan. The other thing that I'm not a fan of from a Gatorade perspective is that it's really hardly an electrolyte drink. It has no magnesium. It has, I think, less than 1% of the daily recommended intake of potassium, and yet it will have anywhere from 20 to 30 grams of sugar in the water, plus probably some red number 40, which is now being banned here in the United States, up to 10 different petroleum-based food dyes that the FDA under Dr. Marty McCary, under Robert Kennedy Jr., are now actually being looked at and hopefully, I mean, on their way out. So I think that is a much better thing for those of us here in America to stay away from that kind of stuff. I would say Gatorade really, if you called it red sugar water, that would be a more appropriate name for it than, it's helping the Florida Gators. A lot of people don't know the name Gatorade comes from the University of Florida from either the 1960s or the 1970s, where there were some research scientists that were like, well, it's pretty darn hot in our football team. They keep passing out. What can we put in there? Let's give them some sugar water and some electrolytes. Now, you know that the formula 50 years later of Gatorade is not nearly the same as what they were making back in the 70s. So I am not a fan of Gatorade and would highly recommend instead, especially for kids or for yourself, like Jigsaw Health, we make a really good electrolyte supreme. One of them in particular, the fruit punch, is a red flavor that we really modeled after red Gatorade because, hey, that was my favorite flavor growing up. But we use stevia and monk fruit as the sweeteners. We don't use any sugar. And it's a broad spectrum of magnesium, potassium, plus the sodium and the chloride, and a few B vitamins as well. So it's a really, really much better way to get your electrolyte drink fix on in the summertime.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because now people are saying, well, I'm getting the Gatorade sugar free, which is sweetened with sucrose. And I'm like, I'm not even explaining this. No, no, no. The end, no.
The
So
end. That's correct.
it's just no. Come on, people. Like, anyway.
Uh, you know what's fun? On Jigsaw on our TikTok, I think it's jigsaw.health on TikTok. Our team recently began doing what's really inside of it, a series of like remaking. And the first one we did was like coffee creamer. And so Corey, one of the guys on our team, in fact, my cousin, the USC film grad, he's in his kitchen remaking these products. And he's like, okay, this is the number one selling coffee creamer in America. What's really inside of it? So he goes based on the list and it's like water. And then uh, soybean oil. It's like 60% soybean oil. And then it's like a little dollop of cream. And you start to see the actual ingredients. It changes your perspective completely. He's done a great video on what's really inside Hidden Valley Ranch, what's really inside a barbecue sauce. By the way, it's like 60% sugar. What's really inside of ketchup? What's really inside? And I don't know if he did a. Oh yeah, he just did. This was last week. He just did vitamin water,
Oh, yeah.
which really it's one of those things where it's like, God, this
Must
is
be healthy for you.
marketers ruin everything. There's like the tiniest little pinch of the crappiest forms of vitamins inside of vitamin water, but it's basically water, food coloring, sugar, pinch of vitamin.
But
So, look on the back of the package rather than the front of the package. That's kind of what I would really more encourage people to do.
TikTok is against my religion, so I don't use it. So you should put them
That's
up on
fair.
YouTube or Instagram, and I'll share them.
They're there as well. Yeah, they all those videos we cross post. But somehow for us, TikTok has been way, way, way more viral. So like the what's really in coffee creamer has 3.6 million views or something like that. What's really inside a ranch dressing has 3 million views. And on Instagram they have like 20,000 views. I don't know why. I can't explain.
Bots. Could be bots.
Bots. It's the damn bots.
Okay. Well, Patrick, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. I'll share everything in whatever you want to share. Just send over to me and I'll put it in the description. And if I do create a magnesium checklist, I'll let you guys know. I think that would be
Perfect.
helpful.
Thank you for having me on the show today. It was wonderful to speak with you and to speak with your audience. I hope everybody had fun.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. Thank you for your time today, Patrick.